Prop 8 was flatly defeated in 1978, and Prop 13 got 64 point something percent of the vote, almost 65% of the vote. That's the history. And in Prop 13 were these, what everyone in government thought were too radical, protections for taxpayers. The state government could not raise taxes unless it had a 2/3 vote in each house of the legislature. All local taxes had to go on the ballot for the first time. Prior to that, the county and the city councils could just raise taxes with a vote at their desks. No more. Local taxes had to go on the ballot. And transfer taxes were banned, ad valorem taxes were banned. Special taxes at the local level needed a 2/3 vote. This was later chopped up by the courts, and they decided that there were two kinds of local taxes. There were general taxes and special taxes. They defined special taxes as for a specific purpose, and they said 2/3 for that. And then general taxes, they said simple majority. Not what Howard Jarvis intended, but that's the way it's come down to us. Since then, we have seen all of these court-created loopholes chopping up Prop 13, the transfer tax ban. In the 1990s, there were 2 or 3 court decisions that said, well, if it's a charter city and it has home rule, has its own local constitution, as all the major cities in California do, if it's a charter city, then it can do a transfer tax if it's for a general purpose. Where did they get this? Right out of the air. Right out of the air, just made up. But that's how it came down to us. Charter cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, Berkeley, they could do transfer taxes, and they did. Now, initially, the transfer taxes they did were quite small. But then in 2017, there was another loophole, and this one's a monster. There was a case called California Cannabis Coalition versus City of Upland. And this case was not about property taxes. It was about scheduling initiatives on a general election or special election ballot. But in the decision, the justices said in a comment that perhaps an initiative is treated differently than other measures that are put on the ballot by local governments. Maybe an initiative the Constitution doesn't apply. 2017, they did this. 2018, San Francisco says, let's test this. So here's what they did. The supervisors in San Francisco wanted to do a tax on commercial real estate leases to benefit early education. If they had put that on the ballot, it would have needed a 2/3 vote because it was a special purpose tax. They went out to the sidewalk and they said, we're citizens too. And they collected signatures for the same measure as an initiative. And it got 50 point something percent of the vote. Nowhere near 2/3, barely a majority. And they declared it passed. Everybody went to court and said, this can't be. It's a special tax. It needs a 2/3 vote. It says so right in the Constitution. And they lost. They lost. The appellate court upheld what San Francisco had done. And they upheld it again in Fresno, and they upheld it again in San Diego. And all up and down the states, the appellate courts have been saying, yeah, that's fine. The Constitution doesn't apply if it's an initiative special tax, if the people decide that they want to raise their own taxes. Well, who are these people who want to raise their own taxes, who are collecting signatures for an initiative to raise their taxes? I'll tell you who they are. They're the special interests that get the money. Under this, what we call the Upland loophole, because it came out of a case in Upland, under this loophole, special interest groups can write their own tax increase, direct all the money to themselves, pay to collect the signatures to put it on the local ballot, and they do not have to meet the 2/3 threshold for special taxes. So now what we're seeing is local governments working with these groups. We see members of the legislature saying things like, well, we could do it with signatures. What do you mean we? They can't do it at all. It's supposed to be an organic group. But since this whole thing was made up out of the air, the loophole is growing and growing. In Los Angeles, Measure ULA, the so-called mansion tax, was on the ballot in 2022, put there by signatures. Who collected the signatures? By an amazing coincidence, the groups in the homeless industrial complex who were going to get the money, wrote this, directed the money to themselves, paid to collect the signatures, put it on the ballot. I think it got 57%. It would have needed 66.7% under the original constitutional interpretation. It got 57%. Oh, it's passed. So now we have this so-called mansion tax. It's a monster. It's 4% on real estate above $5 million. Sale price, not profit. And it's 5.5% on real estate that sells, this is in the city of Los Angeles, for more than $10 million. It's adjusted for inflation a couple of times, so I think it's 5.3 and 10.3 now, but the point remains in that price range. So it's not just mansions, it's commercial property, it's apartment buildings, it's office buildings. It has made an absolute wreck of the Los Angeles real estate market because people can develop outside the boundaries of the city of Los Angeles. And guess what? They thought this tax would bring in $1 billion a year in revenue. I think it's brought in 400 million in 2 or 3 years that it's been in effect. So nowhere near what they projected. And all of these ancillary problems where properties are not being sold, properties are not being built, new developments not happening. We have to close this loophole. Now, last year, the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, working with business groups, which put in a lot of money to do this, they qualified what they called the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act. And it did several things to protect taxpayers. One of them was it closed this loophole. It qualifies, gets the number of signatures it needs. About 1.4 million people signed this petition. Gavin Newsom and the legislature filed a lawsuit to take it off the ballot. They said this just does too much to protect taxpayers. We can't have this. It interferes with government. It's really a revision of the Constitution. It's just too much, even though it was really just saying, let's enforce what's in the Constitution. It's a revision of the Constitution. We can't have this. And they went straight to the Supreme Court and they said, they sued the Secretary of State to have it taken off the ballot. And the Supreme Court did that. And the Supreme Court has not taken any of these appellate cases with this loophole for the initiative, not taken any of these cases that have gone up on appeal. They're just gathering dust on the desk. So what's going on here? I'll tell you what's going on. The entire government, including the judiciary, is out to get your money. They all want more. They want more local taxes. They don't care how they get them. They don't care what the Constitution says. They are bending all the rules in favor of tax increases and against anybody who wants to stop the tax increases. We can't let this stand. We can't. Because with this upland loophole, we could lose Prop 13 itself. Suppose a local government said, oh, emergency, we have to have a big source of revenue. So what we're going to do is we're going to reassess all the properties in this city one time, just once, just one time. And then we're going to give a certain tax break to people in whatever range of price they decide. So it mostly hits high value. And there goes Prop 13. They've done a local initiative to get rid of your protection against being reassessed to market value. And we would go to court and we would lose based on all the precedents so far. So we must close the loophole. How do we do that? We have to use the initiative process. So what our lawyers did at HJTA is they went through that decision last year that took the Taxpayer Protection Act off the ballot, and they saw exactly what the court said was allowable and wasn't a revision of the Constitution, and they followed that roadmap precisely. And this is the result. This is the Local Taxpayer Protection Act to save Prop 13. And it closes the upland loophole and it bans transfer taxes. So a 2/3 vote would be required for local taxes, all local taxes, no matter how they get on the ballot, and all future transfer taxes except for that original 0.11% documentary transfer tax that used to exist before Prop 13, that stays. Everything above that goes away after 2 years. The way that they wrote the initiative, they have a 2-year off-ramp to figure it out, but they go away after 2 years. And future transfer taxes above that low 0.11%, future transfer taxes are flatly banned. We need 1 million signatures by the middle of February. And what we've done is set this up with a website. This is the petition. This is a one page petition, 8.5 by 11. We also have a version that's longer with 6 signature spaces. If you want to do volunteer work and collect those, they have to print on a 14-inch piece of paper, though, or we'll send it to you. You can call the office and we will send it to you on legal size paper with more room for signatures. But everybody at home who has a printer can print an official petition. And so what we're hoping is that everyone who cares about this issue, everyone like you who understands how important Prop 13 is and what's going on here in California, that everybody will email, post on social media, tell a friend, tell a neighbor. SaveProp13.com is the website. You can just push the button that says sign the petition now, and you get a PDF file that has the petition in it, along with instructions, along with the top funders list, which is a new requirement that they stuck in there to make life difficult for us. We don't care how difficult they try to make it. We will not give up. No matter how many times we have to do this, we will not give up. And why will we not give up? Because we can't lose Prop 13. We can't lose California. We can't lose our homes and private property and all become renters as corporations swoop in and buy up everything for cash. We can't have that. It's not healthy for freedom, for our republic, if people cannot own property. People must be able to own property and be grounded in the community and have a stake in the future and build equity and build generational wealth in every community where people can buy a duplex and not lose it to taxes, where they can buy and sell property and not be cleaned out by transfer taxes in the interim. We have to have private property. It's in Blackstone's original rights, Blackstone's fundamental rights, the absolute rights of individuals: life, liberty, property. That is the foundation of freedom. You probably don't know this, but after the Civil War, when we had a big national discussion about how do you create and secure freedom, this was discussed. Blackstone's fundamental rights from English common law from the 18th century, a big influence on the Constitution itself. And why were they having that discussion? Because the Civil War was over and the slaves had been freed, and the southern states were passing a bunch of laws that said, essentially, we're going to keep you in the same condition that you were in when you were a slave, or as close to it as we can manage through the law. So in many states, blacks were not allowed to own property, and they were not allowed to quit a job. They would have to contract for the full agricultural season. Blacks were not treated equally. They would have to sign a contract for a year's work with, and if they quit, they were criminals and they could be hunted down just as when they were slaves. Well, what did they do in Congress? The northern states that were in Congress, they said that was unacceptable, and they passed the 14th Amendment. They passed a Civil Rights Act, and then they passed the 14th Amendment to make sure that the next Congress could not just simply reverse the Civil Rights Act. And in formulating what it took to guarantee freedom, one of the first things they did is say we must guarantee Blackstone's fundamental rights: life, liberty, the right to move from place to place, and property, the right to own and enjoy property. That was the foundation of freedom. And so in California, when we start talking about more and more bonds and more parcel taxes and raising property taxes by breaking up Prop 13, when we start talking about that, we are undermining freedom in California. We're making it harder for people to own property. We're giving the government the power, essentially, to tax people out of the ability to own property. That is extremely significant. That's different than any other kind of tax. An income tax, bad as it is, once on the way in. A sales tax, high as it is, highest in the country, once on the way out. Property tax, every year, as a condition of keeping what you already own. And that is the power to confiscate and the power to seize freedom. And this is why it's so important to protect Prop 13. It's not just a tax cut from 1978. And by the way, it doesn't just protect people who owned their property in the 1970s. Every property in California is under Prop 13. If you bought your house yesterday, You are paying 1% of the base year value, not 2.67%. You're already ahead from what you would have had before Prop 13 passed. And then the longer you own it, no matter how these forces outside your control make your value go up in paper profits, you are not taxed in real money on those paper profits. You don't have to use your after-tax dollars from your job to pay property tax on the crazy value that property is selling for because of factors you can't control. And by the way, one of the factors that we can't control is whether we're continuing to build single-family homes in California. And we're not. And this is a problem because everybody's going to wind up as a renter in the coming generations. And guess what happens when you move these apartment buildings? You know, SB 79, which sadly the governor signed, legalizes essentially apartment buildings next to single family homes everywhere that's close to a transit stop. And a transit stop is defined all the way down to a bus stop if it's a dedicated bus lane. So a city or a transit agency could say, aha, we're going to put a dedicated bus lane on this street for 4 miles. And then that's going to rezone a half-mile radius all the way around that bus stop for the 4 miles of the route. And what that means is developers can come in, buy a single family lot on a single family street, and put up a 7-story apartment building by right, which means the city can't have a process in which they review it and say, oh, this is too much impact on people. You can't do that. They couldn't do it to you if you were a spotted owl, but they can do it to you if you live in a single family home within half a mile of a transit stop. They can come in and they can put up an apartment building right next to your house. And then your neighbor across the street can sell. And the neighbor two houses down can sell. And you're living in a construction site. And then you have 7-story apartment buildings all around you. And here's the kicker. They don't have to have any parking spaces because you're within half a mile of a transit stop. The way they finally finished this bill and got the votes that they needed is they exempted almost every county in California, but it does apply in 3 Northern California counties and 3 Southern California counties, San Francisco and Los Angeles, Orange County and San Diego. I forget what the other 2 counties are in the San Francisco Bay Area. But the idea was we have to have passengers for the transit because the transit's losing money. So we're going to allow these apartment buildings near the transit stops with no parking spaces, and that will force people to use transit. Now, I have to tell you, that is no kind of housing policy for California. Where are the single-family developments? Oh, they're not allowed. Why are they not allowed? Because the climate zealots believe that driving to work is bad for the climate. And so they've made this an impact under CEQA. So if a developer wants to build a tract of single-family homes, the way it was always done from World War II on in California, you move further and further out in the suburbs and you build new communities, and people who are younger buy homes, and they're surrounded by people like themselves who are younger who are buying homes, and they all grow up together, and it's the way it's always been. Well, now because a bunch of people think that's bad for the climate, they're not doing that. They've created this concept of the urban boundary, and you can't develop past the urban boundary because it causes vehicle miles traveled, which they measure, and then they tell the developer, I'm sorry, but you'll have to mitigate your VMT, which means write a huge check to build a bicycle lane somewhere else or some other ridiculous cost. So if they build the homes, they're wildly expensive because they have all this stuff built into the price, but most likely they don't build the homes. And that is not good for California. This has been going on since roughly 2006, 2008. And guess what? You do this for 10 or 15 years, you're going to have a housing crisis. And that's what we have. We have a housing crisis. We don't have enough homes. And then you add to that these other factors, which have a marginal effect, something like Airbnb, where people are buying homes to rent as vacation rentals, or people are buying homes with Wall Street cash and renting them, or they're building developments to rent as an income stream. We're not going to have homeowners. If we don't have homeowners, We don't have people invested in the community. We're all at the mercy of the government and its Wall Street friends. And that is not good for freedom. That's not the system for which our government was intended. It's built on private property. So these are all issues that I think the Republican Party could be running on. I think the Republican Party could be running aggressively to support property rights and property owners and to protect single family neighborhoods so that people who spent everything they saved and everything they earned to live on a street that's not full of apartment buildings because they don't want to live in density. They don't want to fight for a parking space on the street. It'd be nice to protect those people who put everything into their community and paid all those school taxes and all those other taxes for property related services and community services. And now we're just basically insulting them and saying, yeah, well, nice little house you have there. Shame if anything should happen to it. And then boom, apartment buildings and no parking spaces and tow trucks and permit parking and crowds of angry people. And this is from the state government. That's not good. There is a movement for something called Our Neighborhood Voices. You may have heard of it, ourneighborhoodvoices.com, which is trying to collect signatures for they're not collecting signatures yet. I think they're still in the raising money and working on it stage. What they're trying to do is a ballot initiative, a constitutional amendment that bans the state from doing our zoning locally. That would be nice. That would be nice to have local government accountable to local voters again, instead of having these state mandates, which are messing with everybody. You also have these RENA numbers, which everyone agrees are wrong, and yet they're being enforced on the cities. And this is also causing density in single family neighborhoods and other kinds of costly accommodations that make even rentals more expensive because you have to have a certain number of subsidized apartments. Well, that makes all the other apartments more expensive. So overall, and then you add to that things like rent control. You know, the city of Los Angeles just voted today to further restrict how much money landlords can raise the rent under rent control. They made it even harder. And one of the things that they did is they said they can't, if you have a master metered building, which means you have one water meter for the building, one electric meter for the building, and you're not charging the tenants separately. There used to be an accommodation for those buildings where they could add 1 to 2% to the rent increase to cover the fact that utilities are going up. And in Los Angeles, utilities are going up. LADWP is on a mission to save the climate all by itself and is causing huge cost increases. So they took that away. And right now there are 660,000 rent-controlled units in Los Angeles. Mark this down. 5 years from now, it'll probably be closer to 400,000 as people just get out of the business of rental housing because they can't make the numbers pencil out. Why would anyone go into that business? So I think you're going to see buildings literally torn down because they no longer pencil. And a lot of developers right now are just refusing to develop in Los Angeles at all because of the regulatory and tax climate and Measure ULA. So all of these things together add up to the fact that people who understand the situation have to work as hard as we can to explain this to everybody in California, that it's not possible to just pass a law saying landlords will just eat it and we're just going to make rent free, or we're going to stop all rent increases, and we're going to have free buses and we're going to have free everything. It doesn't add up ever. Just like the Obamacare thing, which is financially collapsing of its own weight right now. Because guess what? There's never going to be enough money to give everybody everything they want at everybody else's expense. And that's what Obamacare tried to do. And the result is the premiums are skyrocketing. 5 years ago, the Democrats said, well, we'll subsidize it because COVID. And so they subsidized it with your tax dollars. And then the subsidies were temporary because it was only for the COVID emergency. And now that they're ending, the Democrats are hysterical that people will see exactly how expensive the thing is and how much of a failure. Obama's not going to have a very good year next year, I predict. He will not come out of this so well. But President Trump is doing a great job as much as he can with the fact that the courts keep trying to hit the brakes on everything he wants to do. I think he's going to come out of this in a very good situation for the midterms. And really, he doesn't get credit for his accomplishments because everybody just moves on. They've just moved on from the secure border. They've moved on from the fact that he stopped a lot of wars and didn't start any. They've moved on. Oh, well, that's yesterday's news. Now we have to talk about something else. The ballroom. Oh, my goodness. He's remodeling. It's just not normal. I don't know. If you keep your sense of humor, it's a lot of fun to watch politics, but it's hard to keep your sense of humor. But I encourage you to try. And with that, I'm happy to take your questions on any subject. SaveProp13.com, SaveProp13.com. Tell everyone you know. If you want us to mail you the petitions, we will.
Yeah, thank you for putting in your the website and your email address so people can contact you directly.
Absolutely. And we're
Okay.
setting up drop-off locations now because we're getting to the point where people are calling us and they're saying, I have a stack of petitions. Where do I send them? And of course, you can mail them to the address that's on the petition, but we're also going to set up drop-off locations where we have a sign and an envelope and stickers and postcards and things. So if anybody would like to be a drop-off location, send me an email and we'll get you set up.
Oh, that's great. That'd be great. That'll be great. Okay, first question. Will this undo the damage Prop 19 did to generation transfer?
Unfortunately, no, this has no effect on the Prop 19 thing. We're going to have to do that separately. What we were hoping is that we would get all the bugs out of the system on a one-page petition, on an online petition, educating people that they can go and do this year with this one, and then we could do the Prop 19 fixed for the next cycle. It's pretty difficult to collect 1 million signatures. It's a big challenge, and we have to solve this because both with Prop 19 and with Prop 13, it's not likely that we're going to get big special interest money to help us protect taxpayers. That's not the way that works. So it has to be coming from individuals who are willing to spread the word, sign the petitions, teach other people how to sign the petitions. Eventually, we have to teach the whole state of California how to sign these petitions and get everybody very familiar with it. And then we'll be able to fix a lot of problems. I'd like to fix who does the titles and summaries, for example. So after we fix the Prop 19 problem, I'd like to fix the title and summary and get that out of the hands of the partisan attorney general and into the hands of someone more neutral, like the legislative analyst or even someone else. So there's a lot that we can do if we can master the technique of teaching people to sign these petitions correctly and getting them in on time. So that's our challenge. That's where we are on that. But the Prop
Okay.
19 thing, you're right, has to be fixed.
Yeah, so that's great. Well, we're ready, willing, and able to help you, definitely. CFRW will.
Thank you.
And how many California homeowners are currently benefiting from Prop 13?
Well, really, all of them. Everybody is under Prop 13. Without Prop 13, we'd all be paying a statewide average of 2.67% instead of 1%. In fact, if you go to the Howard Jarvis website calculator, which is at guessinggame.org, guessinggame.org, you can type in the value of your property right now, push the button, it will show you what you would be paying if Prop 13 had never passed. So every homeowner in California is benefiting. How many have owned their homes with a base year from the 1970s? That figure I don't have. But certainly if you bought your home a year ago, 2 years ago, your reassessment didn't happen based on market value as inflation has pushed the price up. So if you bought a home for, let's say, $1 million and now it's worth $1.2 million, you're not paying on the market value. You're only getting a 2% increase in that $1 million base year value. So it's better.
Right. Very good. Next one. Do you have any social media post images we can use to post?
Yes, if you go to saveprop13.com and you click the menu button that says more, there's a tab for social media posts, and there's at least 2 of them, and I should do more. But yes, they talk about signing the petition at home and closing the loophole, and they have the website, and you can absolutely post those.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Wonderful. Okay, next question. Does this initiative take away the right to put bonds on the property taxes?
No, unfortunately, local bonds Local bonds are paid for. This is in the state constitution. Local bonds are paid for by charging all the properties, all the taxable properties in the district where the bond is issued. And there's no escape from those charges. Someone asked me just recently, if you're a senior or you're low income or you're disabled, can you get out of paying those bond charges? And the answer, unfortunately, is no. Very often with parcel taxes, which are like extra property taxes based on square footage or just a flat per parcel charge, very often those have exclusions. But by law, the bonds are paid for by all the property in the area. And I really wish that people in California would learn when they vote that bonds are not free money. Bonds are, if they're local, they're on the property tax bill. And if they're state bonds, then they're coming out of the general fund before all the other bills are paid. So, for example, there's a new bill that was just amended into existence, SB 607, $23 billion bond. Now, if you remember, last year we had the climate bond, 10 billion. We had the education bond, 10 billion. This is $23 billion. And not even for a specific infrastructure project. This is for, quote, research, scientific research, projects to be named later. Really? The interest on that will bring the total charge to $46 billion, and we don't even know what they're going to do with it. They're going to decide later through a committee. And get this, it's exempt from public disclosure laws. No open meetings on that because, oh, proprietary technology, privacy. Good luck with that. So we have to try and kill this in the legislature. It needs a 2/3 vote, but bonds add to your local bonds add to your property tax bill. State bonds add to the basically the state debt at this point. And people don't seem to understand that. Even the reporter who called me from the San Francisco Chronicle did not understand the concept that there's interest. I was trying to explain to her that with the interest, this would be roughly double the cost. And in the article, what she wrote was Susan Shelley asserts that there will be extra fees added that will raise the cost. I'm not asserting and they're not fees. It's interest on the bonds. People don't get that. In journalism, they don't understand that. They think it's free money. We have a big task to educate the population of California.
Right. There was a second part to this, taking away the right to put bonds on the property. And does the same go for like mosquito abatement, water, sewer, school maintenance, or whatever they choose to fund, even though we have declining enrollment?
Yeah. The rules are a little different for different things. Under Prop 218, which was a Howard Jarvis initiative in 1996, that's in the Constitution now. And what it says is that these local fees for water and sewer and trash, um, they have to, they can only be based on the cost of service. So they have to demonstrate what the cost is to provide the service, and it has to be, the rates have to be based on that. And there is no actual vote on those things, but there is a protest vote process. So the city has to notify you that they're going to raise the sewer fees. There's an opportunity to protest, but 50% plus one of all the property owners, all the customers, have to register a protest. If they do, then it doesn't go through. But if they don't get 50%, then it does go through. And it's pretty difficult to get 50% in larger cities, and they typically send out these protest ballots looking like junk mail and people throw them out. They don't read the fine print. So that's pretty difficult. The mosquito abatement things, various taxes must be voted on, but some of these fees don't have to be voted on, and it's granular on which are which. Um, but I'll tell you this, under Prop 218, there's something called the Section 3 initiative power. Now, you'll like this. You may not know about this. The voters can repeal any tax, fee, assessment, or charge at the local level, any of them, including mosquito abatement. You can repeal them. And how do you do that? You do a local initiative and you say, we are repealing or reducing this particular fee. And that's all it has to say. And then the signature requirement, this is the good part, the signature requirement is not 10% of the registered voters or 15% of the registered voters, as it is in some cities. The signature requirement is 5% of the number of votes cast for governor in the last election that elected a governor. This is the same as when you have a statute initiative at the state level, 5% of the votes cast for governor statewide. But this time it's 5% of the votes cast for governor locally. So, for instance, in Los Angeles, there's something circulating. The city clerk thought it was going to take 140,000 signatures based on 10 or 15% or whatever in the mayor's race, but she was wrong. It's actually 5% of the votes cast for governor. It wasn't 140,000, it's like 46,000. So it's much easier to do an initiative to repeal a tax fee assessment or charge. And that's something else that I'd like to educate people about in California. You know, in some places we have these transit taxes and the transit's unusable, and maybe you'd like to get everybody's attention that you're not happy about that, paying extra sales taxes for transit when the transit's unusable, unsafe, unclean, all the rest of it, doesn't go where you need it to go, isn't fulfilling its mission, buses that are not scheduled at regular intervals, not reliable because they're putting all the money into digging holes in the ground for subways, whatever the case may be. You can collect signatures for an initiative to repeal those taxes. I guarantee you, you will get your phone call returned. So that's something that people should know about. It's the Prop 218, Section 3 initiative power.
Okay, great. If someone wanted the email again, it's in the chat and it's
Susan at hjta.org. Susan, Susan, at hjta.org. Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, hjta.org.
great. Okay, does the website provide summary of everything you just said? So we have the talking points.
I believe it does. I believe it has everything.
Okay,
And we also have a little video that I did on how to fill out the petition so that everybody can see that, that there's this declaration of circulator at the bottom that
right,
people are not always familiar with. Because if you go to the supermarket to sign something, they fill out that declaration of circulator. They're the circulator. When you do it at home, excuse me, you're the circulator. And because you're the circulator, you fill out this little declaration. And it's really just the same information. It's your name, it's your address, and then it says the dates that you collected the signatures. And then executed on is just where you're signing the form. So that's the date and city where you're signing the form, and you sign it. And that's it. And that makes the signatures valid. That makes it legal.
right. Yeah,
The other thing to remember is that each petition goes back to a county office to be verified against the county voter rolls. So if you're collecting signatures and you have people who live in different counties, use separate petitions, one for each county, because they have to go back to the correct county to be verified. Otherwise, whichever county they're not in won't verify their signature.
right. It's about it's the same on all the initiatives that we're
Exactly.
gathering
Yes.
signatures on, and
Right.
it's really some good points to remember about
Right.
yeah, about that.
Also, the voters have to write their own information. We've had people actually suggest to us that they use computers to pre-print addresses from the voter rolls and then just go around and get signatures of those people. That's not valid. You have to write, each voter has to handwrite their own information. It's very retro. It's very 1911.
Yeah, but it's good because then you can, talk to people too. It's
It
really
is
good.
good.
Yeah. So here's another question. Any chance of partnering with the Board of Realtors?
We would like to do that. There have been conversations in our Sacramento office with the government affairs people from the CAR. If you're a realtor and you would like your local office to get involved, please call me or email me and we'll get you set up as a pickup drop-off location and partner with you. And then you can call the Sacramento office of CAR and you can say, get on board, put a little pressure on them. That would help. I think everybody's just kind of like, oh, well, we'll get to it eventually. And no, there's no eventually. It's now or never. We really have to get this done by the middle of February. So the earlier everybody gets on board, the better.
Yeah, that mid-February be coming just like that. And now everyone is kind of getting in holiday mode and you don't think about it. But
Right.
remember, you're having parties, you're having your neighbors, your friends over. Have those petitions handy, right?
Exactly. Give them out. Just tell everybody it only takes 5 minutes to sign it and fill out that thing at the bottom and then just scoop them up and send them back to us. Because when you talk to people about their taxes and their homes, they're interested in that. Nobody wants to be taxed out of their property. Nobody wants
No,
taxes to go up so easily. And these stupid loopholes where people are writing their own tax increase. What a deal. You write your own tax increase, you direct the money to yourself, and the courts stand behind that. Only in California.
I know, just to make any sense, but it's done. They do it and get away with it. So,
Yes, exactly.
right. Let's see. There's a couple more. What state has the lowest property taxes in the nation?
Well, I think Florida's trying to.
Yeah,
Florida's trying to get rid of them altogether.
yeah,
Um, we don't have the lowest property taxes per capita in California. We're kind of in the middle of the pack because the property values are so high. So even though there are so many people protected by Prop 13, the overall property tax burden in California is not the lowest in the country. So I don't know which state has the lowest property taxes, but Florida wants to get rid of them entirely, and I think that would be an interesting thing to watch.
yeah, definitely. So, or somebody's asking when the petitions are due to HJTA, and that would
Middle
be,
of February, call it February 15th. Our drop dead delivery date to the counties is the 25th of February. So we need them back about 10 days before
yeah,
that so we can sort them and box them and get them delivered. So February
great.
15th.
Okay, sounds good. Someone just answered the question about the lowest tax rate. It's
Oh,
Hawaii. They looked it
Hawaii.
up.
Okay.
Thank you, whoever did that. Linda B. Okay.
Thank you.
So somebody just commented, property taxes are due by December, so not hard to forget. So you're thinking, got to pay
That's
your
right.
property taxes. Oh, let's
Oh, sign the petition.
let's get these petitions, and let's get our neighbors and friends and everyone else to sign them
That's
and
right.
get
Because
them
all
in.
those little parcel taxes and things are going to double and triple through these initiative tax increases where they don't have to meet the 2/3. They can do parcel taxes all day long. In LA County, there was one for the fire department last November that passed. Didn't get 2/3, got 55%, I think, but it passed because of this loophole. And that was particularly irritating because they wanted to raise $150 million a year for the county fire department. It was sponsored by the unions, by the firefighter unions. What they said in their ballot argument is our equipment is old, our communications equipment is outdated, and we need to replace it. LA County has a $50 billion budget every year. And they can't find $150 million for fire trucks and communication equipment. And then we have the Eaton Canyon fire in the Altadena area. And we find out they were exactly right. Old equipment, bad communications. They shouldn't need a tax increase for that. You're already paying taxes. What's a higher priority than the fire department?
Right.
And the answer is that they are incompetent and corrupt in the LA County Board of Supervisors and have been for a long time. And they've got theirs and they don't fund the fire department properly, and that's a scandal. And same thing in the city of Los Angeles. They underfunded the city fire department, and they were under-resourced when they needed to be there. And so this is very concerning. But the other parcel taxes for this and that, for the homeless industrial complex and the rest of it, those you have to watch because special interest groups that get these big multi-million-dollar contracts want to have their own revenue source that they can control and guarantee, and they don't have to meet the 2/3 vote anymore, and we have to fix that.
Okay. Here's one last question. So this person is asking, are you interested in running for public office?
Oh my goodness. I thought we were friends. You would wish that on me. Well, I'm really happy doing what I'm doing, and I'd have to give up all of it in order to run for office. I couldn't
Right.
write the columns for the newspaper. I couldn't write for the California Post, which I'm going to be doing, I believe, and I I couldn't um, I couldn't work for Howard Jarvis, which is a nonpartisan organization. So I'd have to give up all of that to run for public office. And, right now I don't think that's a very good idea. But I think I was redistricted into a new congressional district. I think I'm now in the Ventura County district. I
Oh, yeah.
was I was in Brad Sherman's district, and now I think I'm in Julia Brownlee's district.
Okay.
Fair warning, everybody.
I know it's very confusing right now, isn't it?
Yes, it
So,
is.
and I don't blame you for not running. You're doing such an excellent job in educating us and informing us, and we really, really, really appreciate it. So,
Thank you.
do you
Pleasure to
have
be
any?
here.
There are no more questions in the chat. Do you have a couple? We got a few more minutes. Do you have any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Well, let's see. We lost the Proposition 50 battle. I heard before the election that there were people in Republican politics in Washington who thought that would be actually better because it would motivate some of the other states to redistrict aggressively on the Republican side. Don't know if that's going to happen or not. Um, I think it's unfortunate for California that some of these areas have been splintered and will not have strong congressional representation for the next 3 cycles, and maybe longer, because it's unlikely that the Democrats will give back this map drawing power that they've seized. I think it's a very bad precedent that they did a snap special election to amend the Constitution for short-term political gain. I think that's a really bad precedent. I also think it was a bad sign that the whole campaign was stop Trump, and then it worked in California because now everything is going to be stop Trump. This
Right.
$23 billion science research bond is already being pitched as because Trump. And it, all the lies that are told about him and the lies that are, I mean, just stuff that's made up, just flat out hoaxes, um, like the fine people hoax, stuff he never said. And I don't know if you just saw that the BBC fired 2 people because they edited together chunks of his speech from January 6th and made it sound like he was ordering people to walk down to the Capitol and fight, when
Right.
that wasn't at all what he said. He said peacefully and patriotically. They cut that out and they took some fight thing from the end of the speech that was unrelated to going to the Capitol. It was just about being assertive on your positions, that kind of fight. And they merged it together and they made it sound like he was inciting a riot, which obviously he was never charged for because he didn't do it.
No.
And then they aired that just recently, and 2 people at the BBC got fired for that. But this is an example of the kind of lies that they use, and people who are watching MSNBC, CBS, ABC, NBC, this is what they see, and this is what they believe. And this is why we have this division in the country. It's because of the lies that are told about Trump. He's a Nazi, he's this, he's that. It's just it's unsettling to watch this from mainstream media. And as somebody who works in media as a columnist, I see it myself in the people I work with. They do not know the facts. They only know what's reported about what's reported about. And it's way off the mark. So I continue to try. I write whatever I want. Nobody censors me, so I try the best I can to get the real truth out. And a lot of people write to me and say, "Why is this in the opinion section? This is the news. These are the facts." And it's
These are
true,
the
but somebody's
facts.
got to write it.
I know. It's a crazy world we live in. It really is. But we can't give up hope and we can't give up the fight.
No, never
Even
give
though
up.
we were very disappointed in, last week's election, but we got to keep charging on, which we're
Always
gonna do.
remember, before the Berlin Wall fell, nobody saw it coming.
Yeah.
Before the Soviet Union fell, nobody saw it coming. Before Hillary Clinton wasn't the first woman president of the United States, nobody saw that coming. 98% chance that she's the winner. Nobody saw it coming that Trump would win. And honestly, when change happens, it can be quite sudden and unexpected, long overdue. And that's how it is in California, I think. Incidentally, the way the Democrats are dividing up their vote in the governor's race, it's technically possible we could have 2 Republicans in the general election. Wouldn't that be something to see?
Yeah. Yeah, that would be something. Really would be. So yeah, we have to see what happens. I don't know if anybody's dropped out or what, but um, it's going to be
Well,
interesting.
2 dropped out, 1 got in. They're going to divide up their vote.
Oh,
Katie Porter
yeah,
won't leave the race. Katie Porter can't win, but
no.
she's not leaving, so anything could happen.
anything could happen. You're right. So, well, Susan, we really thank you for spending time with us this evening and all the information and education. And we're ready to fight, and we know what to do now. So everyone, all the members out there that are on this call need to get petitions and get out there and get them signed, and do it now, sooner than later.
And
Correctly?
tell everybody, email, post it on social media, saveprop13.com.
Right. Thank you so much, Susan. We really
Thank you.
appreciate your coming, and thank you everyone for joining us this evening, and have a good rest of your evening, and be well and be safe. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Take
Thank you
care.
again.